One bite of this rich, fatty meat is an absolute feast for a starving polar bear. This massive chunk of fat is like an overwhelming banquet. This soft blubber is a rare and precious source of calories. The starving bear devours it frantically. With this massive boost of energy, they'll finally be able to survive the freezing Arctic weather. When male hooded seals are looking for a mate, they inflate the nasal sac on their head. It blows up into a giant balloon filled with blood. This bright red display really stands out. In a pure white world of ice and snow, this is basically a death wish. After her cub left, the mother bear was heartbroken for a long time, but life has to go on. Just then, this courting seal catches her attention. Hooded seals aren't aggressive like male polar bears. They carefully approach the females, showing off their bright red balloons. This kind of flashy courtship is almost irresistible to the females, but if the female is nursing a pup, you'd better make sure her mate isn't around first. The males rarely fight over a mate. They just blow up their balloons to scare off their rivals, but the starving mother bear has no patience for this show. To find the perfect angle to strike, she dives underwater and sneaks around the back. As summer arrives, the melting ice can no longer support the polar bear's weight, but her biggest worry is her recently departed cub. The young cub is really struggling out there on its own because it hasn't caught any prey. It's been starving for a very long time. It even chews on leftover scraps of animal fur floating in the water. Now, it has to rely entirely on the hunting skills its mother taught it. Adult ringed seals are extremely fast, but the ones hiding under the ice aren't so lucky. By now, the young polar bear has developed a razor-sharp sense of smell. Even through 3 feet of packed snow, it can accurately track down a baby seal. Bitten right on the head, the baby seal doesn't stand a chance. This milk-fed little guy is packed with protein and fat. It's the absolute perfect survival meal. As the summer ice melts away, the seals are no longer trapped, so the polar bears' hunts become much harder. Desperate and hungry, they have to take big risks. During this season, female walruses are nursing their young, and their heavy calves become prime targets for polar bears. To raise their babies, walrus moms often survive on their own. A growing walrus calf needs to drink gallons of milk a day just to stay alive, so the mom has to convert huge amounts of her own fat into milk for her baby. This massive drain on her energy means she desperately needs to eat, but her baby is still incredibly dependent on her. The mom needs to find a trustworthy babysitter in the herd to watch her calf. As soon as they're born, they can swim, but they just don't have the stamina for long swims. Hitching a ride on mom's back is a pretty good strategy. Meanwhile, the hungry mother bear has been swimming endlessly, searching for any sign of walruses. Swimming for so long burns a crazy amount of fat. She is absolutely desperate for a walrus calf to feast on until she finds a herd to watch her baby. The walrus mom can't eat either. As temperatures keep rising, the floating ice they need to rest on is disappearing. Even if she finds a herd, the height of the ice might be too much for the baby to climb over, and there's basically no suitable ice left for them to rest on. With 0 options left, the desperate mom just has to force her way in and fight the others just to find a safe spot for her baby. The herd is not happy at all about them crashing the party. Those 3-foot-long tusks are a very real threat. The sudden crowding on the ice causes the whole herd to break out into a massive brawl. There is no way the walrus mother is leaving her baby with these aggressive bullies just to let her calf get some rest. Even without any ice, the mom will cradle the baby in her flippers while treading water. You might think she looks goofy, but you can never doubt a mother's love. Finally, another female agrees to watch the calf. The mom settles her baby and immediately dives down deep to hunt. Walruses mainly survive on shellfish from the ocean floor. They use their giant tusks to dig through the sand, and their stiff, wiry whiskers act like high-tech sensors. A single walrus can eat over 200 pounds of clams a day, and they never swallow a single shell. But when a polar bear swims overhead, the feeding walruses completely scatter. A polar bear can't kill a fully grown walrus underwater, but a nursing calf is the absolute perfect target. Sensing the danger, the female walruses grab their babysat calves and rush away. Underwater, the polar bear is actually at a huge disadvantage. Those giant tusks could easily pierce right through her. Every adult walrus weighs around a ton, but once they drag themselves onto shore, that massive weight becomes a huge burden. Following the herd, the mother bear has also made it onto the beach. The endless swimming has completely drained her. She needs to catch her breath before she can start hunting. When the sea ice completely melts, this beach on the Chukchi coast can get packed with up to 100,000 walruses in a single day. They aren't here for a beach vacation. They are here out of pure desperation. The massive walruses are squished together, literally stacked right on top of each other. Looking out, there is literally not an inch of empty space. For a baby walrus, this is a deadly situation. Fight's over. Territory break out non-stop. If you want to find a spot to rest, you have to drag yourself over mountains of blubber. It's basically like having cars drive back and forth over your body. Add in the constant threat of a polar bear attack, and a deadly stampede could happen at any second. The intense swim has left the mother bear completely wiped out. She needs to eat right now. A walrus's massive body is completely packed with fat. Their blubber alone can be several inches thick. Out of the water, a walrus is basically a sitting duck. Catching just one would easily get her through the hard times, but they have incredibly tough skin, making it almost impossible for a bear to bite through. Plus, dragging around a ton of weight and carrying 3-foot-long tusks, this is still going to be a huge challenge for the mother bear. To protect her newborn calf, the nursing walrus mom is even willing to take the polar bear's vicious bites with her own body. And even if the polar bear gives it her all, she can't do any real damage to the walrus. Staring at this massive pile of blubber right in front of her, the mama bear just doesn't know where to start. She can't scratch through it, and she can't bite through it. She just has to watch her prey slip away. Once these heavy walruses get underwater, they become incredibly agile. Their attack power shoots way up too, but the starving mama bear doesn't care about the risks anymore. After a long, desperate struggle, she has no choice but to watch the walrus herd swim away. This hunt left the mama bear severely injured. Her left hind leg was pierced by a walrus tusk. The intense pain makes her roar out low. The walrus herd goes back to being calm. They seem to know that this polar bear is no longer a threat. She can barely walk now, let alone hunt. If she can't find food soon, it's highly likely she'll die right here. Meanwhile, a hungry little polar bear followed the scent of the walrus herd and finally arrived at the Chukchi coast. He hasn't eaten in a very long time, and he desperately needs food. The starving little guy can only copy what his mom did, searching the steep cliffs for seabirds, but the energy he spends trying to catch them is way more than the calories he actually gets. When they're healthy, polar bears metabolize their fat to stay hydrated, but the fact that this little guy is actively drinking water means his fat reserves are completely gone. If he doesn't eat something soon, he will likely die within a week. As the tide goes out, a lifeless body is exposed on the shore, and there's a high chance this polar bear is the mama bear. Between the leg infection and starvation, she eventually passed away in agony. Right then, the little polar bear seems to catch a familiar scent. The smell instinctively makes him stand up to look. Normally, to avoid inbreeding, polar bears actively avoid the scent of their relatives. But as the little polar bear gets closer and sees his mom's body, he can't even believe his eyes. The memories of them playing together are still so fresh in his mind. But now, she's just lying there, completely lifeless on the ground. Seeing this next part might shock you. Polar bears very rarely eat their own kind, but when pushed to the absolute edge of survival, they will resort to eating their dead. The mama bear's death ends up being the very thing that keeps her son alive. Perhaps wherever she is now, that brings her a little bit of comfort. With the rise of global warming, summers in the Arctic can now reach temperatures above 20 degrees Celsius. This heat causes a massive breeding ground for parasites on the walruses. The unbearable itching, combined with the extreme heat from the crowded herd, makes some walruses instinctively break away from the group. Some are so desperate they'll climb up a 100-meter cliff. For an animal as heavy and clumsy as a walrus, this is basically a death sentence. Their eyesight on land is terrible, but they can hear their friends calling from down below. When they get hungry, they instinctively try to head back to the ocean. The only problem is, from the top of the cliff, taking one step forward means falling into the abyss. When a 1-ton body plummets like that, there is virtually zero chance of survival. But even knowing that, the walruses behind them just keep lining up and jumping. The greenhouse effect driving this global warming was supposed to be Earth's natural thermal blanket, but human activity has completely overloaded the system. Now, facing this massive, tragic feast, tons of predators have caught the scent and are starting to arrive. In a place where food is so scarce, hungry male polar bears will absolutely fight to the death over a meal. The little polar bear is way too small to compete with the adult males for food. He just has to sit on the sidelines and watch. And even though the walruses are already living in a complete nightmare, the indigenous people who live here still hunt them heavily. Compared to the claws of a polar bear, the hunter's cold harpoons are infinitely sharper and more ruthless. The barbed arrows pierce deep into the walrus's flesh. Huge buoys prevent the walruses from diving down and escaping. The coastal Chukchi people have relied on hunting for generations. A massive 2-ton walrus can feed an entire family for several weeks. The hunters sharpen their blade and skillfully process the meat. The carved-up walrus meat gets wrapped in the walrus's own skin. After 2 months of natural air drying and fermenting, it transforms into a vital hard currency for the locals. Most Chukchi people survive by herding reindeer, but venison is mostly lean meat, whereas walrus blubber perfectly fills the gap for the calories they desperately need. This kind of bartering system allows the Chukchi people to live a self-sufficient and relatively happy life in the freezing north. Meanwhile, our helpless little polar bear has to resort to eating berries. They don't give him any real energy, but it temporarily fills his stomach. In the blink of an eye, summer is over, and the Arctic's brutal freezing temperatures start creeping back. The little polar bear needs to head back to Hudson Bay to hunt, but since he didn't manage to save up any energy all summer, there's no way he can survive the long migration. Just when all hope seems lost, a miracle happens. About 30 kilometers down the coast, a massive 50-ton bowhead whale has washed ashore. Dozens of polar bears caught the scent and rushed right over. No one wants to miss out on this calorie feast before winter hits. The little polar bear drags his exhausted body and makes his way there. Because there is more than enough food to go around, the dominant males don't even bother fighting. That means even our starving little guy gets to grab a slice of the pie. The rich, fatty blubber is the absolute best food for packing on pounds. The little guy goes totally crazy, stuffing his face. It's the most he has eaten all year. By finally getting those calories, he just might be able to survive the bitter winter ahead. Suddenly, a once-in-a-century freeze rolls in. The surface of the ocean quickly freezes over, trapping dozens of beluga whales in the ice. With an incredible feast practically handed to him, will the little polar bear finally survive the harsh winter?